For rewarding people, usually we have weekend service reports where we'll fill in and send in to our leaders, and one of the questions on there is MVP for the service block, and it just kind of goes over who did well, and it makes you think as a leader who's been doing really well, and helps you track how different people on your team have been going. If someone's consistently doing it, then you can see that they're doing really well where they are, and it just really helps pinpoint the high points. We'll also have a little team meeting after service with the team that was on. I'm just going over some of the higher and lower points of the service, what we need to fix, and what went really well, and just kind of thank people for being there.
One of the things that I really like to do is just buy them a cup of coffee or buy them breakfast. They're here for 4 to 5 hours on a Sunday morning with us. A full belly and a little caffeine go a long way. It's an opportunity for us to sit down and chat over a meal or over a coffee at the same time. So it's not just a simple, like, here, let me give you this. But I feel like it is a very effective way to just kind of open up some of those doors to conversation and show an appreciation. And, it's not something like, it's not part of the church's budget for me to do that. It's a personal thing that I've chose to do.
Volunteer appreciation, I think, is a significant part in not only retaining volunteers, but also expanding your volunteers. And it's something that's, I think, overlooked in a lot of churches. I find that for myself, the best way that I can show appreciation to volunteers is usually every week I'll end up calling or emailing or texting whoever is serving for the weekend. So if you're serving on camera, I'll usually call you and say, hey Joe, how you doing? I just wanted to, connect, see how your week's going, and say I'm excited to see you this coming weekend. It doesn't take a lot of time. Each conversation maybe lasts 3-4 minutes. And it gets me on a regular rotation because Joe, the camera operator, is on a regular rotation of serving, every 4, 5, 6 weeks, depending. So that gives me a connection with them, not only on the weekend when they're serving, but also outside of that weekend, like our normal monthly training sessions. But then during the week, I'll end up usually calling them. And there are opportunities to take volunteers out for lunch. I try to do that, or coffee in the morning. Christ asked us to take communion with each other, which is essentially sitting at the table, having conversation, and you're able to open up in those circumstances. So not necessarily that I'm having communion with them, but it's the concept that Christ was trying to deliver, that I also try to do within the team, to have break bread together, have lunch together, hang out. I find that's usually the opportunities where they open up the most.
For motivation, we have gift cards that we hand out to our technicians if they go above and beyond and help with classroom support, or if they help last minute with things, or different things like that. We also tend to keep a variety of snacks around the office, such as jelly beans, and just have basically an open door policy. So if they want to come and hang out with us for the day, they can, and sit in our office. We all eat together at lunch. We've also hosted pizza parties as a thank you for an event. And we've had a game night, and there's different ways that we try to get together a couple times a semester.
People want to serve, and really, to be honest with you, the fuel for serving the Lord is your relationship with the Lord. It's an overflow. Just like worship is an overflow of your relationship with God, serving God is also an overflow of your relationship with Him. And I don't do too much. I don't really try to manipulate the system to motivate people. I don't have awards or recognitions necessarily. All I do is say, hey, thank you so much. We couldn't have done this without you. That was great. And then you share your battle scar stories and things like that after the service. Just simple appreciation is basically the only thing I can do, is treat them out to a burger or buy them a coffee. I provide snacks for them, and a lot of people do work for food.
You know, it's not easy telling someone they did something wrong. It's not easy to be told that. So I think that the best way for us as tech leaders to be able to approach issues of, consistency with whatever job they're doing or not doing it properly is to have emotional equity. And what emotional equity to me means is that you have built up enough equity outside of the organization that you are able to communicate with them. So taking them out to lunch, showing them that you care for them, and you have to build into people so that when you take out, you still have the equity to help them grow. So taking out is, talking to a video director and saying, your timing of your shots it's not matching the speed of the song. It's not matching to the feel that we're trying to, create. And so how you communicate that is sometimes you got to have tough conversations with them, saying, this is something that you're going to have to come in and do extra training on. Those conversations aren't easy, but as a leader, you need to push toward that awkwardness because chances are the individual knows that they're not hitting the mark dead on. I'm sure they do, maybe 50, 75% of the time, but there are those instances where, not everyone's perfect. As tech leaders, we aren't perfect either. And so going towards that awkwardness and saying, hey, I'm pretty sure this is obvious to you. And so how do we work through the process of getting them to where they want to be?
For disciplining people, I'd always go with the public praise, private discipline. And I'd usually go with the 24-hour rule, which never deal with something right after it happens because it's just a bad time. Maybe after a service or something, catch up or get a day that week that you can catch up for coffee. But go home, have a think over what happened, have a think over what the issue is that you want to address, how you want to address it, what kind of action you want to take. Maybe talk to a spouse or like a friend or something like that. And don't go into it angry. Don't go into it without having actually thought through what you want to talk about. But definitely do address something if an issue comes up. If it's a small issue that keeps happening, maybe just say, hey, I noticed this is happening. This is how it should be done. And that's that. Like, it doesn't have to be a big deal. If it's a major issue, then may need to get a pastor involved, something like that. It really depends on what's going on. But if you notice something is a recurring thing, it doesn't have to be taking them out, but just having them step aside for a second and have a quick conversation with them about that.
I'm from a background where my dad was a disciplinarian and my mom was the very opposite. So I have kind of the same two spirits in me, where I have the ability to be too harsh, but I certainly have the ability to just kind of overlook things. What I'm learning is it all starts, effective discipline starts with a simple conversation. Let an individual know where they're excelling, offer praise where praise is due, and then when you have to give them the tough information, they'll receive it. I feel the most effective discipline comes from encouragement. Encourage somebody rather where they could do better instead of just pointing out where they failed.
Life is messy, and it's not any cleaner in the technical ministries. Sometimes you have to call someone, volunteer on it, especially if they're being disruptive, if they're not doing a good job, or, God forbid, if there's some sin or there's a conflict between two people and they're fighting. It's just rough, and sometimes you just have to address it. The Bible is very clear on how we resolve conflicts. We go directly to the person. And so, for example, if two volunteers are not getting along with each other, I encourage them to go directly to each other. Obviously, if that doesn't work, then they can come to me or another witness, and just follow that biblical example. A lot of times, I have the luxury of just rearranging the teams, and that's just structuring the environment so that there's not conflict is wonderful. I found that if a person is not able to do the job well, for example, someone running the lyrics and they're constantly late, or they're not hitting the right slides or missing the cue, I'll encourage them into another position, or I'll offer training. But when it comes right down to it, sometimes you just have to say, sorry, this is not working out. And we've tried all the options, and I just got to be honest with you, you can't serve in this position because it's actually causing problems for other people worshiping. So is there anything I can do to help? Is there another ministry we can look at together? I'm willing to do whatever. You're supporting them, but the fact is you cannot allow dysfunction to stay within your ministry. It will ruin the health of the ministry. Get some support with your pastors, your immediate supervisors. Make sure that your team, your leadership team, knows what you're doing so that you don't get attacked and so forth. But you really have to address it, and it's not easy.
I haven't had to ask somebody to just permanently step down, but I have had to ask an individual or two that was incapable of committing at a level that was requested to take a hiatus, essentially. I don't feel like, personally, it's a good practice to just completely and totally turn people away. If there's a problem, there's always a solution. It's whether or not you can identify what that solution is.